I believe, especially as a female solo traveler, it's really different than if you're a male solo traveler. One time I remember I did a small trip with my best friend and he wanted to go out in a new city. We were like in Zagreb. And at 1 p.m., at 1 a.m., he was like, I'm going for a run. I'm like, what do you mean? It's late. We're in a new city. You don't, it's dangerous. And he was like, what do you mean? It's not, nothing will happen to me. And I was like, this was the moment where I realized, and it hit me hard, that he experienced safety on a different level than I do. I was like, is it just him? Is he just crazy to go on a 1 a.m. run in a new country and a new city? Or is it like a huge difference between solo travelers and between different kind of travelers? And actually, yes, almost 90% of female solo travelers experience being unsafe or feeling uncomfortable at least once on their trips, which makes me really conscious. And that's why we said we have somehow also the responsibility as a company to connect you with people that are hopefully trustworthy. And at the end of the day, you cannot 100% predict if there's a sociopath or psychopath, but we can build some layers to make it harder for them. Because the biggest shocker I got when I was 21, I studied 1 year in Mexico. And I mean, growing up in Germany, you don't really see so much poverty. I grew up also in a small village. You don't see like homeless people anywhere. So I had no clue that the gap between the rich and poor can be so huge. And I saw this for the first time and experienced this with my own eyes, with my own soul in Mexico. And I got shocked. I got really like, it did something to me because I was like, this is not possible to live on the same planet and to have so huge differences while the other person is really ordering sushi for I don't know the amount of money, and the other person cannot even buy a bread or water for a day. So this was the biggest shocker in my life, and this changed my view on the world a lot. And I believe this only happens not if we watch news, not if we read something about it, but if we're experiencing it and see it and see that. I believe this also increase our empathy for the world and to do things to help maybe other people, to emphasize with how other lives look like all around the world. And this is something I became conscious, I would say, to see how big the differences are and how local people live. Are they in poverty? Are they not? How is their system working? Is it supporting them? And then I try to spend like most of my money to local people because they don't try to become, they try to do some fraud attacks, which was quite insane to experience with email addresses. And we realized with phone numbers as well, but with phone numbers, they couldn't enter. It was hard for them to do so. But with email address, it was super easy. And so we took this out completely of our systems and we focus only on phone verification. And I would say it keeps some people away for sure, but hopefully the good ones. The bad ones, sorry, not the good ones. Hopefully it gives the bad ones away. The ones who are, not really intended to meet other people, who not really intended to um, go through the safety aspects, whatever they want to do. So that's why we keep it only phone verification. And we develop our own verification system. So it's a video, it's a number that you have to say. This number changes always. And in the back end, the algorithm is matching this with your pictures. And if the pictures doesn't match with your video, and if we can detect actually deep fakes, this is also something I don't understand why people are using them.
Theodora, welcome to the Nifty Travel Podcast.
Hello, everybody. Nice to be here. Thank you, Alex.
No, you're most welcome. And what I always like to start off by asking my guests is about your earliest memories of travel.
That's a really interesting question because I have to say I took my first flight when I was 2 months old, but I cannot remember anything. So by saying that, this was not the memory stick with me. But my parents always took us with them everywhere they went. So traveling was kind of part, it was part of my childhood and it continued to be part of my life. So my first memory of traveling was, I guess, between 5 and 6 years old, and the flight to the United States. Because yeah, a lot of stories involved in my childhood that had to do with traveling, but it was around, I think I was 6 years old, um, when I remember this huge flight, this huge airplane, and the huge airports. As a kid, everything feels anyway super, super special and way bigger than it is. So yeah, this was my very first memory.
I think you're absolutely right about everything. So seems so big in every respect. Um, so I was going to ask you if whether you grew up in Germany or the US, but maybe you're going to give me a different answer.
It's actually not the one you might expect. That's true, because my parents are a little bit crazy, and in the good way. I don't mean it in a bad way. I actually mean it in a good way, because I love what they did. They come from Greece, so both were born in Greece, and due to better work conditions, their parents moved to Germany, and it was kind of migrating to Germany. So we grew up in Germany, but roots in Greece. But my parents, what they did is they gave birth to me in the States to get the green card to move there, because the biggest dream of my dad was to move to the United States. Back then, things were completely differently. And since we had family in New York, my uncle had the great idea that my parents actually executed on to give birth to the child in the States. And that's why I had my first flight with 2 months, because my parents did indeed execute this plan. But they never moved to the States. So
Oh, okay, yeah. So, so where else did you get to travel with your parents then?
my parents made 5 kids, so we are five. And they were traveling with the 3 kids to all around Europe and the States and Canada. And then they did kind of the same thing with us as well. So every summer, I remember, was 1 year in Greece for 6 weeks and 1 year in the States for 6 weeks. So in Germany, there's like the summer break of 6 weeks. And that's where my parents had the possibility, because they were owning their own business and my grandparents were helping them. So that's why we could really move. We went to the Dominican Republic. I remember this as a kid as well. We were dancing on the pool. It's the most memories that stick with me as a kid, like all those travel plans. And also around Europe, we get like a van. My dad got a van and we traveled completely through Germany. So we saw a lot of parts of Germany, and I'm just really grateful my parents did it and they never said no to travel plans or to invest money into traveling. They might say no to a really expensive bag or jacket, but investing in traveling was never something they said no to until today. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, I can only imagine that traveling is is a very natural thing that has been part of your life. It's almost like uh, movement is a natural thing that you indulge in. Would you say that's accurate?
I would say that 100%. And I believe we're curious human beings and exploring is something in our nature. At least I believe, because every time I'm on a place and there's nothing more to explore, I'm like, okay, now what's next? Now let's do another trip. Now let's do another trip. Let's see the places, let's see the people, let's see the cultures. So I would say it's definitely inside of me, but I also believe we are natural explorers. And looking back in human history, I mean, we moved through continents and continents, and yeah, this is something that really keeps me alive in a way.
Yeah. So throughout your formative years, then you must have been making secret plans that one day I'm going to be doing this, and I'm going to be going somewhere else. So how did those sort of ideas form in you, and what actually happened when you had your first opportunity to spread your wings, as they say.
I changed for asking for permission from my parents to just inform them that I'm gonna travel. So this is something I needed to develop kind of over the years because when I finished my school, I didn't want to stay in Germany. I really wanted to see the world. I knew I wanted to study, but I knew I want to experience something, go into an adventure. And I didn't tell my parents that, but I was for a couple of months before my school ended, I was searching for internships in the States because my parents gave birth to me in the States. We kind of grew up in childhood there. And I found an internship through a German company and I was like, listen, my mom, dad, I'm gonna work, but I'm not gonna work here. I'm going to the States. And they freaked out, obviously. But when I was 20, I took my first solo trip all over the States, not knowing anybody over there. But knowing like the company headquarter was quite of close to our place. So I was talking to them and they said, don't worry, there's like a student house and you will be fine. So calming down my parents, and it worked out. I mean, I was working there for 6 months, and this kind of made me move. I studied 1 year in Mexico, and I moved to Greece for a couple of months after my studies. So it was a lot of things always involved with traveling, which I never will regret in my 20s, and hopefully this will somehow continue in my 30s now.
Yeah. So going back to Greece, do you obviously still have family connections there? So does it feel different in a way that you're kind of going back to your roots, but you only really visit, it must almost seem like you're a visitor, not part of the scenery, but you how did it feel for you?
So this is always a special place, I would say, because it does indeed feel going back home in a way. And yeah, home is can be everywhere, and home is also where I grew up. But going back to Greece, it feels so familiar. It feels like people can understand your culture so easily. We love to dance, we love music, and you don't have to explain anything, and everybody gets it. So I'm also freaking out when I see Greek people either in Germany, in Berlin, or anywhere around. I'm like, it feels like super connective because you have so many points that you connect with, so they feel familiar. And my grandparents are still there from my mom's side. My sister moved to Greece almost 10 years back. She said bye to Germany. My older brother wants to move also to Greece. So somehow it's interesting to see that our grandparents left this country for better job opportunities and a better life. And now their grandchildren, so the third generation, wants to go back to their roots. And this is also something I feel. I want to grow old in Greece. I don't think I'm ready yet to move there, but it's definitely a place where I know I will grow old. And somehow this feeling you can explain, you just feel it. And
Yeah,
so yeah.
no, absolutely. Um, I suppose it's a kind of like life is a cycle in one respect, isn't it? I one of the destinations my parents took me to was Greece, and what British kid doesn't like hot weather and nice beaches in the summer. Uh, and over the years, you observe the fortunes of countries which seem to sort of the lights go brighter and are slightly dimmer from time to time. Do you think that Greece has been through many cycles and is perhaps on a do you say it more on an up trajectory now after mixed fortunes?
Now I'm really curious, Alex, where you have been in Greece. But to answer your questions, and then please tell me everything about it if you want to. So I see this country and its people have been through a lot, really a lot, and not only the last 5 or 10 years, but since centuries they're going through a lot of things. And what I see one thing about this country and its people is that they never give up. They somehow always have this hope. They somehow always put a smile in their face, even though I mean right now I wouldn't say it's it. You see it's going up somehow, but for its people living there, it's still super hard. You don't earn a lot, the prices are rising. It's not the best condition to, if you don't have a stable job, to go there and to move there. And everything is so uncertain in a way, but still people are happy. They're happy and they smile and they know I'm gonna have my fifth coffee with a friend of mine that I'm gonna meet for the third time in the week. So they really love this connection, talking to people, not being isolated in their homes. And I believe this is also something that creates the happiness. Obviously the sun and the ocean for sure. It's a different weather and different climate. But this is really something we can learn from Greek people as well, I believe, to not take your problems too serious or life too serious. It is serious, but there's also other parts in life, and not only your job, which is an important part, but take care of your relationships and connections and spend time with each other and be there for each other. I think that's really beautiful, and what I like about the country and its people.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Those are good. Those are good aspirations. Well, I'll only briefly give you a couple of examples of Greece because they stand out. One, as a 5-year-old, I think I got lost on the Acropolis. I think I got found because I screamed louder than any other child, which is probably a painful thing. And yeah, a very long coach trip um, to see some ancient Roman ruins. I knew inside it must have been a long way because the roads changed from tarmac to dirt roads. I was very no, I was very impressed. So you kind of alluded it to there. You know, you like meeting people, but when it comes to travel, you're a very independent soul. You like nothing better um, to, than to go off exploring on your own. So how do you explain uh, how how you travel is different to how you like to socialize?
This might be paradoxical at first because I always say I'm a solo traveler, which doesn't mean I want to be by myself all the time. For me, this definition of me being a solo traveler and why I do this so often is I don't want to waste time waiting for people. I don't want to waste time spending too much money on the wrong location or a location that I've already seen. I'm the one who normally doesn't go to location twice besides Greece, because Greece is like going back and visiting my family. So I realized that not all the people will travel the same way you want to. And a lot of times you travel with people and then maybe their relationship ended. This happened to me. We traveled for 3 weeks, or 2.5, 3 weeks with my ex partner. And then we ended the relationship because we saw completely different sides from each other that really didn't match. And so I want to be independent in a way that I can do whatever I like to do. I can explore the city in my own terms, in my own travel style. And still, I'm looking for people. I go to hostels not because I like the comfort, but because I want to meet other solo travelers. I potentially put myself out there and talk to strangers because I want to meet other people. And a lot of times I still do a lot of things alone because I'm afraid that I will spend my time with somebody that doesn't match me, that doesn't match my expectation of this trip. So yeah, that's why I go a lot by myself, which is also a really, if somebody didn't travel alone, I really recommend this because you will gonna know yourself and you're gonna meet yourself on a different level. And it's crazy how much solo traveling can change you in a positive way if you let the transformation happening. And so yeah, and at the end we are social creatures. We all need human connections. And newest studies show that our number one predictor of happiness is not how much alcohol and wine we drink, how much we sleep. It's actually the connections we build, the deep, meaningful connections. And this is something that I'm aiming for always, also when I travel alone.
Yeah. So would you say that traveling solo then is really about building up self resilience? And if it is, um, what did you figure out um, that perhaps you weren't expecting?
So I don't know. I'm also good in just putting myself in there in uncomfortable situations. Maybe other people are not that comfortable with that, but I still suggest it. And what solo traveling showed me is that I could actually discover who I'm really am, and not only with the first solo trip. It happens really over the next one and the next one. It changed me in a way to understand what are the thoughts that are coming from myself, what are the feelings that I feel, and putting myself out of this bubble that I grew up. It's really helping to understand who you are and to build the self confidence of, hey, I can figure things out by myself. Even I'm super bad in asking support, but as a kid, I was super shy. I was super introverted. I was a completely different version that I am right now. And I also believe traveling shaped me in this way, also different other experiences. But one main part was traveling to get the confidence back on myself that, hey, wait, this is a really uncomfortable situation, or this is a really big challenge. I have to get a taxi on a random country that I speak the language not really good. My Wi-Fi is not working. I don't have any SIM card. I forgot to buy one. And you are in this high anxiety level first, and you still somehow figure it out. And the next time you are like, oh yeah, true, I have to buy a SIM card. I have to do this. I have so it got my anxiety level reduced a lot. I become more calm. When a problem comes up, I'm like, we're gonna solve it somehow. If not right now, we're gonna find the solution. So your brain structure, I believe, also changes you. It changes, and that changes you to find solutions easily, to not overreact, to not stress yourself out, and the ability to hopefully connect also with other people. Some parts of it, I would say.
Yeah. No, you're right that it's a little bit about like adding layers, isn't it? Layers of confidence, I suppose. Um, and each trip can give you something
Yeah.
extra. So you talk about you like experiencing new culture and traditions. So I suppose are you well? Obviously, you see differences whenever you go to somewhere different. Do you have things that you're specifically looking for, and therefore, when you go to a new place, you usually see them first?
Very interesting question. I haven't thought about this or took this consciously on my next trips, but what I'm really looking for is to connect with locals and find like the local businesses and to see how other people live in those countries. Because the biggest shocker I got when I was 21, I studied 1 year in Mexico. And I mean, growing up in Germany, you don't really see so much poverty. I grew up also in a small village. You don't see like homeless people anywhere. So I had no clue that the gap between the rich and poor can be so huge. And I saw this for the first time and experienced this with my own eyes, with my own soul in Mexico. And I got shocked. I got really like, it did something to me because I was like, this is not possible to live on the same planet and to have so huge differences while the other person is really ordering sushi for I don't know the amount of money, and the other person cannot even buy a bread or water for a day. So this was the biggest shocker in my life, and this changed my view on the world a lot. And I believe this only happens not if we watch news, not if we read something about it, but if we're experiencing it and see that. I believe this also increase our empathy for the world and to do things to help maybe other people to emphasize with how other lives look like all around the world. And this is something I'm became conscious, I would say, to see how big the differences are and how local people live. Are they in poverty? Are they not? How is their system working? Is it supporting them? And then I try to spend like most of my money to local people because they don't try to become rich. They try to make a living. And I'm not gonna go there and the local tell me a price of I don't know a bottle for 1 2 euros and I want it for 50 cents. Like I believe we should become more conscious that those people are really trying to survive in a way in a lot of countries, and that we as a traveler we can be more conscious and spend our money wisely. This is something I, if you ask me that question, I see now and I am more aware of on my next travels.
Yeah, exactly. So what seems like a budget for us may mean a massive difference to someone else. Now, one thing you mentioned that you like doing is to travel slower. So when you consciously do this, do you suddenly see the rest of the world speeding up?
Yeah, and I'm coming from a finance background, and it's really two different worlds and two different, one system I learned and one system I experienced. And it really made me question the whole system that, especially in the Western world, we build everything faster. It should be more efficient, more efficiency, and here and that. And let's make a checklist for the traveling and let's just make a picture of each place. This already gives me anxiety if I talk about this. So yeah, we should calm ourselves down. We should be more aware of it. And a lot of times what I do while traveling, I really look around and then I see something on the building really randomly. This happened actually in, God, where was that? In Bulgaria, I think in Sofia. And it was a huge building and everybody was passing by. And I was like, wow, they're not seeing this, or maybe they saw it already. And then I turned my camera on, my phone off, and my phone, and turned my camera on and took a picture. And then suddenly people realizing this, that I'm looking up, and then they stopped, and then they look up, then they took their phones out. So it's, you miss a lot of moments if you just run through life. And sadly the systems makes us believe that we have to run through everything. So it's, and especially if you have a startup like I do, it's so, I fight every day with myself of I have to do things faster because the system, the world wants me to. And I know we can also do it more consciously and be more aware and live in the moment. And it's okay if things go slower. So it's a constant fight between myself.
Yeah, no, that you're absolutely right about the. Uh, it's almost having a foot in two worlds, isn't it?
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, that's an interesting take on that. Now, you mentioned favorite places. You've talked about a couple. You also mentioned Portugal and Italy. We've talked, obviously, the importance of Greece and what you experienced in Mexico. But what about Portugal and Italy stand out for you?
So I have to say, um, whenever we travel to Greece, and here comes Greece again, my parents always took us on the ferry and we always spent some days in Venice. So as a child, I remember those streets. Nowadays we fly to Greece, but when we were children, I don't know why, but our parents always packed everything in the car until it's full. You as a child, you could like sleep everywhere. We had like a big car, a Chrysler, and it was like such an adventure. Nowadays when you are older and bigger it's really uncomfortable, but as a kid it was awesome. And we always spent some days in Venice, and I fell in love with Italy in because of this. And then I traveled more and more. I saw Matera, I saw Puglia. I really want to go to Sicily. So I went also to Rome, fascinating city. And I keep coming back also to Italy because it's kind of similar mentality to Greece or this Mediterranean area. But Venice was something I will never forget. And those visuals are really, or those memories are really visual, because as a kid you see the city also completely different, as we said before. And those moments of being happy, being on vacation, being with my loved ones. And I don't know if you have been to Venice, Alex, but it's a really beautiful city, and it was not so packed as for tourists, with tourists as I guess nowadays, with all the over tourism getting worse and worse. So
No, Italy is a nice place. And do you ever feel, apart from Greece, that you obviously wish to go to longer, when you go to a favourite place, do you always feel drawn there to stay longer?
The worst feeling is when I know it's the last day of my travel and it doesn't matter where I am. It's it's always horrible and I get super nostalgic. And this nostalgia comes from a huge gratefulness that I've experienced this, that I was there, and now I have to leave, go back to my so-called normal life. It really hits me always after my post-travel. It's the hardest part of 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 traveling. And even though I have a favorite place, even though or I like places a lot, for example, Rome or I mean, those big cities, you can like them or not, but I'm also a super nature person, but I also love big cities, probably because I grew up in a small village. So also Paris or Madrid, like those, it looks like a historical place. There are historical places, and it's more like I love discovering. So I don't put maps on. I just walk through the streets. I know like a little bit of orientation before, I hope. Getting lost, it's also part of it. And but I never have this craving of I want to go back there next year. If it happens, it's gonna happen. But I'm always getting then excited to discover new places. And you cannot really compare, I would say, your trips or my trips at least, because everything is so different and on its own beautiful and meeting different people, experiencing different things. So if you ask me for a favorite place, I honestly I cannot tell you.
Yeah. No, it's difficult when you like traveling.
It's a
Yeah,
hard question. It's a hard question.
always worth asking, though. And you talked about already about the moments that happen during uh, travel. We all like to preserve moments, but we live in a very modern world where people are obsessed with recording everything. Do you think
Mm.
we do you think we share too many of these moments um, online?
Yes and no, because I'm also part of the sharing. Um, I think it's really hard to say when we reach the level of we share too much. Because one thing we have to be conscious is that influencers, as the name is, they influence us. Either it's on products or either it's on travel locations. So they have a huge effect on people. And I would say if a lot of influencers market one place, it will be packed the next year or a couple of months later with just people wanting to do their own Instagram stories and just traveling for because an influencer told them and they can post now what they saw and they never enjoy it during their trips. So this is just one assumption and one part of a traveler that I believe exists out there. Instead of just don't listen to influencers. Just go where you've been the most drawn to. Open a map and then see, okay, which place I haven't been, which place I want to go, and let's plan it on my own. I think this is so beautiful also to plan trips and not to get everything planned by AI. I think this takes a lot this excitement away. Which I don't say don't look for recommendation. That helps a lot. But still, and there are some moments where people are always on their phones and then they're not with you on their trips. So this is also because I love going alone because you never know who is gonna record non-stop. Um, but I also love to record some moments to share it so people can see also this place. And I always put a little bit of educational traveling in it. So explaining a little bit the history, the story. I'm obsessed with history, especially with mythology. Coming from Greece, no surprise. So I always want to understand how this city was built or how this place was built. How did it look before? What are the traditions? I'm super curious. And I share this through my stories so people can not only see a place but connect it with a history. And so that's why yes and no. It really depends on the amount. And if you're only there to take pictures, then don't travel. Don't spend your money for pictures. You can easily Google them or make ChatGPT create them for you. So it's really always, as always, keeping a balance.
Yeah. It sounds like you make a connection between what you capture with the history of um, locations. Do you? So, do you feel that history is a very important part of telling the story of a place?
I would say so. Yeah, because then you understand how everything was built before, what happened. I mean, colonization is also a huge, huge part of it, and we shouldn't forget it. How everything changed in the world of colonization, and that at the end, that we remember we are all coming from the same planet, and we are all wanderers. We are all, nothing is owned by us. And I think if you connect with the history, you will understand a place better, and you will understand its people better. And like racism and discrimination is decreasing when you travel a lot, and because you see that, oh, they're not that dangerous, or they're actually friendly, or they have like a history, or they were also not treated right. So I think it's important because we are tourists or travelers, and we don't have more rights than the people living there, and we should also not treat that we are the king or the queen traveling to those places. That I also see a lot of people, or some people, um, think because they have the money and they can afford some things in some places, they can also behave in a different way. And yeah, it's really a lot of different travel types, and I hope people will travel now and in the near future more consciously in a way to experience beyond just the hotspots, places and people beyond just the hotspots.
Yeah. No. No, that's good. No, that's a good thing to say. Oh, because we all share, don't we, a lot more in common uh, than we suspect.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you mentioned before we came on today is that you've been solo traveling um, for over 10 years, um, but one of your drivers for something that you've now created was that travel is not always sweetness and light, is it? There are times when you can feel lonely when traveling. Uh, there are times when you perhaps don't feel as safe um, as you would like. How 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 have you adapted, do you think, as part of those experiences,
Mm.
and what really motivated you then to create um, the organisation that now means a lot to you, called Velout? Perhaps give us some background as to
Mm.
what you've experienced.
So first of all, it was never planned that I'm on this entrepreneurial journey so early in my life. I just had this feeling because we were on the university and the professor asked us, it was like startup lessons. I really wanted to know how to build your own business. And one sentence he told us at the beginning: connect with your own problems. And I was thinking, and something that you enjoy, because you will do this for the next 6 months of this university. And then connected with my travel experiences, and I was like, wait a minute, if I want to travel, or if I travel by myself, I always want to find like other people, and it's so hard to find like the right ones, and I wasted so much time to being on travel with the wrong ones. So then I stayed by myself, and I felt this loneliness, and it's really an uncomfortable feeling. And I believe a lot of people have experienced this, since we live in this loneliness epidemic called now out there. And I wish it would not be that way, because again, what keeps us happy is our deep connections to each other. And if we are losing them, we are faced with so many challenges on the mental health part, on heart disease. We see it's rising. So loneliness is so easy said, but it comes with so many negative things on our health, which is just scary. And after diving deeper into this part, I understood like, wait a minute. So it's not only me feeling lonely, it's not only me wanting to find travel buddies. There are so many people out there who try the same thing, who are like me, curious, want to experience the world, take a flight tickets maybe in 3 days and go out of the country, and don't have time to wait for anybody, but still we belong, or we want this meaningful connections. And really, this is somehow I dive deep into it. I did it for 6 months, and then I put it on the side until I was like, wait a minute, why do I not continue the business? And then my professor encouraged me to continue. He would be there for me. So it was just doing it on the side for almost 3 years now. And since last year in September, I fully jumped in because I found my co founder. I built an amazing team that is helping us. And I was feeling lonely on doing this alone. Here it comes again. And then having a team, having a co founder who actually believed in my crazy vision. And they were like, don't worry, we will somehow manage to figure things out together. It's went to a completely different path. And now I can call it, yes, I created this business out of my own problems, realizing how many people actually we could help to find meaningful connections. Because it's easy to find people, it's hard to find meaningful connections. And this one question lead me to the business I started building and I'm still building right now, which is, as you said, called Velout, where we try to make those meaningful connections between solo travelers and trying to show them. So the second part is local businesses, because this is something is driving me also while traveling. So achieving the matching part, finding your travel buddies, and then finding local businesses around the world and local tours, sustainable tours. There's so many out there, but we are so sometimes myself blind to see them. And if we spend money, why not giving it back to the locals and doing it with the right people on the way? So this is a little bit of my story.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Well, that's a good impetus to begin something. So, in terms of how people find one another, you talk about shared personalities and interests and similar travel goals. How do you weave those three things together? Because they seem quite different.
Yeah, it is quite different, and matchmaking is actually super hard. I had no clue about that. This is also something about myself. I have ideas and I don't overthink them. We gotta find a way and we somehow gonna figure things out. And the right doors will open hopefully at the right time, whatever this means. So I'm also not an overthinker. I just put myself in situations and then I will figure things out. And this is how it happens and how I found my co-founder who did a PhD on machine learning and AI. So he's like an AI engineer and develop own algorithm. I swear, some things you cannot make it up. And he developed own algorithm that we're using in the back end. So you can imagine those algorithms are research backed. And I know some startups who started the idea, built 4 years, three of them only the algorithm, and then started the product. So I was happy and glad and grateful that our paths met with my co-founder Bhupendra on a random network event. I just said, I need you in my team. I know I need you in my team. Guess what? He didn't join right away. He joined 1 year later, but he joined. And then I realized, okay, now matchmaking is still hard, but it's easier because we have the backend. Nobody sees it, but we know that if we reach the amount of users, which is critical and which is a couple of thousand users, then the algorithm can actually make us magic. If we don't have the algorithm, it's really, really hard for those meaningful connections that we are aiming for. And we are not having enough users, that is also hard. But at least this big research part is done. And then we find psychologists. Really, this path just started. This is my biggest tip out there. Just started. You will find your way. because we were connected through university with a research center of psychologists who did research on, they interviewed 500 people on traveling, VR and everything. So they're quite familiar with the travel industry. And we were like, hey, we want to create meaningful human connections. Can you help us? And last year we did 6 months of research on how to make a matchmaking better. And then we analyzed different travel personalities, travel styles, travel preferences. Like it was a huge thing. We got around 400 interviews, 300 something interviews. And then we analyzed the data, we design it, and now we are implementing. Actually, today it's the test version out of it to create better connections by, yes, having interests, having different travel personalities. But the most important part, we're going to focus on the matchmaking is, what do you want to experience on your next trip? Who you want to be, or who do you think you're going to be in your next trip? What are your expectations? So for each trip, we have created and analyzed and researched different kind of travel styles that are important for solo travelers. So long story short, it's really hard, but somehow this path lead me to my right co-founder, to the right research center, that we can actually claim and aim it. Yes, we can do, and we can create those connections if we reach the amount of users that are that we need actually for that. But you can trust us that everybody is aiming and claiming they can do matchmaking, but look at the back end and look at the research part. Is it there? Is it not? And then you actually have your answer. So it's still a huge journey. It's still a very long way, but I believe we're on a good path to figure this big question out of how is it possible to create meaningful connections between solo travelers.
An interesting word I sometimes hear in marketing more frequently now is what they call intentional. And of course, this is something that can be applied in many scenarios. What do you think an intentional traveler looks like?
An intentional traveler. I haven't heard this word actually a lot. Maybe because my background is in finance and everything I learned in marketing, I learned on the hard way. But intentional, my definition of what I received right now is that somebody who knows what they want, knows themselves probably quite well, and has some certain expectations on what they want to experience. So this is a little bit having an intention behind your next trip, if we connect it to intentional traveling or intentional traveler. But maybe somebody else has a completely different definition. They're like, no, that's not how you define it, but that is how I receive it and how I feel this word translate into what I shared. How you see it, Alex? Is it intentional traveler something you could call yourself also?
I think it's something we all evolve into, because I think intentionality is largely about when you travel a lot, you start building up a library in your own mind, places that you've liked, places that you appreciated going to, but maybe I won't go back to, um, situations, scenarios. Do I like warm weather, cold weather? Um, you start building up an enormous list. You don't necessarily do it consciously, um, but you just get a feeling, don't you, of what you really like.
Yeah.
And so now safety, of course, is an important part of any human to human um, relationship system. Have you felt it necessary um, to have a vetting system so that, you know, a bit like um, any, situation where you're inviting people? I don't know, if you were inviting people an evening party, you wouldn't necessarily invite everyone. So how do you think this translates um, to the travel world
Mm,
that you're creating?
I believe, especially as a female solo traveler, it's really different than if you're a male solo traveler. One time I remember I did a small trip with my best friend, and he wanted to go out in a new city. We were like in Zagreb. And at 1 p.m., at 1 a.m., he was like, I'm going for a run. I'm like, what do you mean? It's late. We're in a new city. You don't, it's dangerous. And he was like, what do you mean? It's not, nothing will happen to me. And I was like, this was the moment where I realized, and it hit me hard, then he experienced safety on a different level than I do. I was like, is it just him? Is he just crazy to go on a 1 a.m. run in a new country and a new city? Or is it like a huge difference between solo travelers and between different kind of travelers? And actually, yes, almost 90% of female solo travelers experience being unsafe or feeling uncomfortable at least once on their trips, which makes me really conscious. And that's why we said we have somehow also the responsibility as a company to connect you with people that are hopefully trustworthy. And at the end of the day, you cannot 100% predict if there's a sociopath or psychopath, but we can build some layers to make it harder for them to join, or hopefully nothing will happen, but hopefully that we make somehow sure that our travelers feel safe. And the first layer we did, and some people might like it and others might not like it, but at least for the beginning, we have only with phone number to register on our app because we had some frog attacks. We are super early startup. We just finished our beta phase at the end of last year, and they tried to do some fraud attacks, which was quite insane to experience with email addresses. And we realized with phone numbers as well, but with phone numbers they couldn't enter. It was hard for them to do so. But with email address, it was super easy. And so we took this out completely of our systems and we focus only on phone verification. And I would say it keeps some people away for sure, but hopefully the good ones. The bad ones are not the good ones. Hopefully it gives the bad ones away. The ones who are, not really intended to meet other people, who not really intended to um, go through the safety aspects, whatever they want to do. So that's why we keep it only phone verification. And we develop our own verification system. So it's a video, it's a number that you have to say. This number changes always. And in the back end, the algorithm is matching this with your pictures. And if the pictures doesn't match with your video, and if we can detect actually deep fakes, this is also something I don't understand why people are using them. Um, it can detect it. So we built our own system, which took us a couple of months. And this is like this: do I want to move fast, or do I want to move fast enough to make actually safe, not breakable systems? And I don't like this about the startup ecosystem so much because now everybody's running on AI and it's going to be a mess. I feel that in some years it's going to be a huge, huge mess, but this is a different topic. And so this is our two layers of safety. And obviously you can report, you can block the user. We have a safety guide. So, and we're going to improve on this safety layer also with time more and more to, yeah, make it easily for our community to feel safe while using our app.
No, it's important to do these things these days. You need to protect um, whatever you create. And talking about communities, obviously this is part of the benefits, isn't it, of having a system like this. You can be a solo traveler, but you can join something where you can meet people who feel similarly um, to you. So how are you building out your community? Is it basically wherever the majority is at any given moment? How do you, the world's a big place. How does your community connect with one another?
It's really a huge place. Even if you travel and you feel it's getting smaller, the more place you experience, it's still somehow a huge place. And me not, having any idea of the startup world when I was getting out of my master's. I thought I will build this for everybody and I will invite everybody and everybody should use the app. So I was losing a lot of focus at the beginning. And as I said, luckily I didn't had a co-founder and CTO the first year of my journey. So I had another co-founder, but he was the sales, but the journey was getting too hard for him. So he left us at the beginning of last year, but we are still friends and everything. But he also had never written a code in his life. He had a full-time job. And I was thinking, what can we do? I somehow want to continue my idea because my professor was motivating it. I had like this friend who joined the journey, who wanted to join the journey on somehow the side. And then I started building a community if I wanted to or if I didn't want to, because I wanted to jump in with developing the product. But I'm happy and glad this didn't work out. So take any obstacle. At the end of the day, you will understand it was not an obstacle. It was leading you to the better path. And my philosophical side on the last years of building my startup. And so I was like, what can we do? I created a whole wait list of people wanting to download the app, but we didn't have any app. So they get in our community newsletter while signing up for our wait list. So we started to have like bi-weekly, no, it was first monthly community newsletters. Now it's bi-weekly community newsletters. And then I started to build like a WhatsApp community to update people on behind our journey, to send them quick updates, to connect them and make people connect with each other. And this was the first ones were my friends. The next ones were like people from Germany. So in the south of Germany, we started building it, and now we have a lot of people in Berlin as well, because it's just a really hot solo traveler hotspot. But basically, me running through every event out there in Helsinki, in Spain, in Madrid, actually, in Lisbon, and telling people to download the app or like to sign up to my waitlist and to join our WhatsApp community before they could download the app. And this is somehow, Alex, where our community is all around Europe in a way, but now we're getting like hotspots in Berlin and in the south of Germany where everything started. But we still have users in the US, in Mexico, where I lived for a year. So it's a little bit messy, I would say. But the beautiful thing is, I asked myself, I cannot run in-person events. None of my community is like in one place. So we started monthly community events since the end of last year. And they're so beautifully because even I talk here a lot. I don't talk in my community events a lot. I met people meet in breakout rooms and connect with each other and exchange. We prompt a couple of questions on different kind of travel topics. And this is really something I enjoy doing to bring people together also in this digital world, besides our app and matchmaking. So somehow it started messy, and I believe I'm getting now more into a more focused path. Yeah.
It sounds like, well, I mean, I don't know why I'm asking. I also like the entrepreneurial journey, but I was going to say that you start with an idea, but what you create isn't necessarily exactly how you initially imagined it. It's kind of evolving with you. Is it? Are you having a similar experience?
Yes, it is always changing. And the good thing is I never run out of ideas. I have so many ideas, and maybe that's my problem. I have to break them down and focus on one and then another one. And then it's not working. Then we leave this behind. And then so it's me having a problem to break things easily down into one direction instead of trying to make five at once. Um, because then you realize what is not working and what hopefully will work over the longer path and the shorter path, but by involving like really your community into the game. It's you're not building it only for yourself, you're building it for people out there, and it would be wrong to not include them in your path.
Yeah. And talking about the conversations that you've had with your community, does that mean you have exposed this thing that people like to call hidden gems, special places? Have you been here type conversations? Have you been introduced to locations uh, that you feel that you should go to one day?
Yes, 100%. I think hidden gems became also like a buzzword in a way, but it's a beautiful buzzword. It sounds actually beautiful. And we also share monthly hidden gems with our community on WhatsApp. So really places that you would not think about. And I was introduced also by jumping into the travel industry more onto those hidden gems, because for me it was also like, let's do first the big known places, and then I can travel to the rest if I want to. And now I'm really driven by this motivation of let's go where nobody is. Let's go where people call it hidden gem, and I hope they still gonna be hidden gems, because if a lot of people know about them, then tourists will, yeah, run over those places. So I'd also change in my travel aspect by wanting to discover places that are hidden from the over touristic and over tourism that we're experiencing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, hidden gems can become not so hidden if we shout loudly about them. So, wow, an hour can go by amazingly quickly. And I just really wanted to sort of wrap up our conversation today by asking you how do you feel the future is going to pan out in terms of your project, and do you have any particular uh, particular goals, unfulfilled goals, or perhaps certain desires that you'd like to achieve next?
One of my top of the top of my bucket list is traveling to every country of this world. So, but I think I have time until the next years. Let's see. We never know until what age we're gonna be on this earth. So it's important to do what we can do right now. And obviously, I hope really that the startup and the project that we have will be the leading platform for solo travelers that want to find meaningful connections, that are really tired of all those group traveling experiences and want to experience also local businesses while they travel, local cafes. And I really hope we will make it possible for solo travelers to meet in a more meaningful way really, really soon, and that nobody ever, even traveling alone, has to feel lonely. This would something be that is driving me and why it keeps motivating me to do this, because it's a hard journey, but this motivation makes it really worth it. And I hope this will be the end, one of the end goals for sure.
And that's a very worthy goal too. So, oh, it's been amazing having a chat to Theodora. I don't know where the last hour has gone. It always seems to go too quickly. Um, I really appreciate you making time to have a chat to us today.
Thank you so much, Alex. And I think it's a good sign of time flies by when we have good conversations.
Absolutely, and you're most welcome.